This is Your Other Brothers Podcast.
It's like running through an open door. It's like finding what you're looking for. We've been waiting. We won't wait no more. We got a beautiful story. Every moment on and on. We got a beautiful story. And we've only just begun. The best is yet to come.
Welcome home, friends, to Your Other Brothers podcast. We are a community navigating faith, homosexuality, and masculinity together. And from the Jewel to Blue Ridge, as always, my name is Tom. I'm so glad that you're here joining us today from the other side of the state, the city of Oaks. It's our other brother, Ryan. What's up, Ryan?
Howdy, Tom.
Howdy.
I don't
That
know
was
why
so
it came out
Texan.
that way.
From Texas. No, he's still very much in North Carolina, but I love switching it up a little bit. Maybe when we go to the folksy tundra in a second, our other brother Aaron will switch it up. From the folksy tundra, it's our other brother Aaron.
Oofta. How's that?
There you go. That's
that
more
Midwestern enough?
regionally appropriate. Yes, very nice.
Yeah.
Can that just be your regular greeting every time we come on? It's Aaron. Oofta.
Oofta. Yeah, I like it. Could work.
Oh, that's so great. Play into those stereotypes. We're all about stereotypes today, you guys, because we're talking about gay. This is a really interesting topic. I'm going to explain the significance of it shortly, but gay representation in media. So in books, in TV shows, in movies, maybe in music, maybe in Broadway plays. I don't know. There's all kinds of mediums for media. So we're going to be talking about that in just a little bit. Ryan, this is something that you have suggested. It's literally, we have a master, this is a little peek behind the curtain, everybody. We have a master spreadsheet with like 75 topics, and some of them make more sense than others. I'll leave it at that. But at the very top of the list, number one is gay representation in media. It's been sitting there for God knows how long, years at this point. And Ryan, I want to give you credit. I want to affirm you if you're okay with that, because we had an incredible Zoom call with our supporters recently where they threw things at the wall and we were seeing what stuck. They were suggesting podcast topics. And you showed up that night and you raised your hand and you suggested, hey, Tom, what about gay representation? Even though you've already suggested it, it's just been sitting there for years. And you know what? I was looking at the calendar and I was like, let's do it. Let's just do this episode today. So way to go for standing up for your topic.
Thank you, Tom. My motto in life is all you need is a little patience.
Yes. So thank you for waiting 3 years or however long it's been. I'm so excited. I think this is going to be a good topic because we got so much feedback from our Yobbers community, from Patreon, people suggesting or answering some of our discussion questions, sharing some of their resonant characters, gay characters in books, movies, TV shows, etc. So we're going to talk all about that in just a little bit. But first, it's really funny because we were kind of scrambling tonight to get coordinated and to get going. We were texting a little bit, and it was a really nice segue into something I wanted to talk about, because a new development in my life, because it's a new year. We're recording this in January of 2022. It's a new year. It's a new me, right? That's what everybody's saying. Everybody's starting new gym plans or workout plans, regimens, or whatever. Maybe, well, I'm not gonna say everyone. I think Aaron might not be.
I've learned to set realistic expectations for myself in the
That's
new
fine.
year.
This is not shaming you. I just wanted to state reality. And
It feels kind of like public shaming, but I'm good
sorry.
with that. That's
Please
fine.
don't take it that way. I'm sorry. But because let's be real, I don't know how long this is going to last. But for me, I started a brand new workout program today, like literally an hour and a half ago. And I'm kind of exhausted. I kind of was like, oh gosh, now I have to record a podcast. Let's try to build I drank a full Gatorade and ate some dinner. And so hopefully I've got enough in me to get me through the next hour and a half. But what happened was because I'm without a car, I can't like drive to a gym, and I don't really feel inclined to join a gym right now while COVID is still very much a thing. So I was like, what can I do? What can I do to work out? I've tried YouTube workouts in the past. I just haven't had the self-discipline to like find a YouTube channel with workouts or find something to stick with. So lo and behold, one day, you guys, I checked one of my credit card. You know how, I don't know if anyone here is a Dave Ramsey fan. They may not have credit cards, but I have several credit cards, and I was checking one of mine, and they had a special offer to try out this workout program called Future. And I get 2 free months of trying it. After that, I don't know if it's going to be financially worth it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for 2 months, I have a personal trainer assigned to me on the Future app. And I've already had a FaceTime call with him. I shared my physical limitations, and I talked about my autoimmune disease and kind of some joint things. And I was just telling him where I was, that I really haven't had a legit workout in about 2 years because of COVID and my disease and everything. So he knows all of that. And so for 3 days a week, he's going to personalize these workouts for me. And he is such like a gym bro. Like, he just has that demeanor about him. And it's funny because the workouts, like, he picks things, and there's like videos of random actors doing the workouts. And so you kind of see how it's doing. So that's like the YouTube-y aspect of it. But it's just been personalized to go in a correct order of everything. And at the very beginning, his voice, he's got such like a booming voice. And he's like, all right, Tom, let's go, buddy. Let's do it. And then he disappears. He's gone. He's not like watching me or anything. Like, it's just the first 30, it's not even 30 seconds. It's like 2 seconds. He says my name and he gives me this encouragement. And then off to the races. And I am so winded. It was a rough workout, but it was my first one. I'm trying to give myself grace. So I don't know if this is going to be a thing that sticks after 2 months, but I don't know. It was kind of humorous just to have this rando guy. He lives actually in the handprint of God. Shout out to Michigan. He lives in Michigan, and he's training me on this app, and it like monitors I have this little, like, it monitors my pulse. And so he sees my heart thing. So it's kind of cool. It's like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just need to commit 3 days a week. That's what I'm shooting for right now.
Well, you know what they say, the first workout back after an autoimmune disease is the hardest.
That is what they say.
That old saying, yeah.
That is what they say. Yeah. This has been a long time coming. I've been like walking a bunch, and I've tried a couple runs here and there, but nothing has really been consistent. So I really hope that for 2 months at least, I can be consistent. And then if I stick with it, I stick with it. If I say goodbye to Danny, so long, Danny, I'll try out somebody else. Ryan, you mentioned that you were working out as we were scrambling to figure out when we can record tonight. What are you doing with your body these days? Do you have anything?
Oh, right now I'm just doing brisk incline walking on the treadmill.
That's right.
While I watch TV. Yeah, because of some back issues, I had to take a little break from lifting weights, but I'm hoping to get back into that in a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have those. And I told Danny that too. Like, I don't have any weights, and I'm not going to go spend $500 to get like a home gym. I'm not about that life. I'm not going to create a home gym in my place, at least not right now. So yeah, he just gave me all these. It's amazing how much you can kill yourself with squats and lunges and just using your body. Like, I was like, how am I so exhausted right now? I haven't picked up a single weight, and I just want to collapse on the floor. It was ridiculous.
Right. I just can't do body weight workouts. Like, they're just psychologically too hard for me.
They are. Yeah.
Like, it just feels demoralizing to me.
Right. It's true. I mean, I did a lot of that after I had a back injury. I did physical therapy and stuff. And yeah, you just use your body weight and you use some resistance bands, and it's convenient. You can do it in your house, but it is a little demoralizing.
Yeah. And I've learned, I was never great at squatting, but I've learned that my knees are not what they used to be. Like pre autoimmune disease Tom's knees are different than post autoimmune disease Tom's knees, which we'll see. I gave him some feedback. I was like, bro, I can't do the squats. give me something, give me something non-squat related next time. But we'll see if Danny pulls through. I'm curious if our listeners are feeling the inspiration of a new year and they're joining the gym or they're doing CrossFit. Remember when we used to talk about CrossFit every episode? I miss those.
Man, that's like so 2 years ago.
It used to be literally every episode. Now we don't even mention it.
We've both moved on.
Yeah, that's so sad. But yeah, listeners, if you're doing something, let us know. Give us a call on the Yob line or shoot us an email or leave a comment on this episode. Let's for at least 2 more months. I'm invested. So let's keep each other accountable for 2 months and then drop the ball after that. That's the plan. That's the minimal plan, but hopefully we can ascend beyond that as well. Some announcements before we get to our discussion. Book club continues to roll. We just talked about prayer in the night with I don't know, like 10 or 12 different guys for book club, and it was so great. It was such a great book about grief and about waiting, and I learned a new vocabulary word which I'm going to try to remember off the top of my head. Theodicy. Theodicy? That's what it was, right, Ryan?
I think that's right. Yeah.
We'll go with that. Yeah. Theodicy. Google it, everybody. The problem of pain and trying to figure out where God fits into all that. So it was a great conversation and I'm excited for our next 2 entries. I'm going to front load our listeners with that. We're reading The Relational Soul by Plass and Cofield for February 16th. And then hot off the presses for March 16th, we're reading Eve Tushnet's Gay and Catholic, which has been on my to-read list for literal years.
Wait, to be clear, that's not the one that's hot off the presses.
No, yeah, that's
right.
In fact, hot off the presses. I don't want anyone to be
There's
confused
a new book
here.
called Gay and Catholic by this up-and-coming author, Eve Tushnet. Yeah, no, hot off the presses as far as announcing it to the community. Yeah, this is a book that goes back years that so many people, so many trusted sources have told me is a fantastic book, whether you're Catholic or not. Just there's a lot in there that's worth reading and worth applying. So I'm so excited. Book club has finally given me the reason to read this book. that's been on my to-read list forever. So those are our next 2 books. And all of our information for joining the community is on Patreon. So check out patreon.com/yourotherbros and join the best thing. I'm just going to say it's the best thing Yob does. Not retreats, not podcasts, not Zoom. This is it. This is the apex of Your Other Brothers. So join book club. Join book club today. Ryan, you've been to pretty much every one. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree that yes, it has some of the I don't know. I feel like we have some really good high quality conversation about deep things. There's like the right balance of personal connection with people, balanced with like just intellectual, like digging into topics. So it feels like a good mix.
I was going to edit you to just cut it off if you had nothing to say, but I'm glad you contributed. That was great. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And before we get into our conversation on gay representation in media, we have to thank our sponsor, Ellen. Thank you, Ellen. Not Ellen DeGeneres, just Ellen. There's a community of Ellens supporting what we're doing today, supporting this show. So thank you, nondescript Ellens.
Thank you,
Ellens.
Your other Ellens
for supporting our show today. So Ryan, you said at the top that this is a topic that you've been wanting to do. Can you tell us why you suggested it? Do you remember what was going through your head? Like, this would be why was this something that you suggested as a topic for consideration?
I think it's something that I have often thought about, especially when I see gay characters in the media, like in TV shows and movies. It provokes this sort of like complicated, mixed feeling in me that I feel very strongly. And so I thought it would be an interesting topic to dig into and try to sort out how do we, like, what names do we give the feelings we feel? And because I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels kind of this complicated feeling toward representations of gay people in media. And so, yeah, I thought it raises some interesting questions about what is representation good for? Like, what does it help us with? Why is it important that we see ourselves represented in the stories that we tell? There's other questions like what would be good representation for us? So I think it leads a lot of different interesting directions.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm really curious to hear, starting off with this conversation. I'm curious, like, do you guys even remember who was like the first gay person that you saw in a TV show or on TV or in the movies or in a book that you read? Like, do any names or do any characters come to mind as far as whenever you first became aware that such people could exist? I realize that's a tricky question because like a lot of it's not like all of us came out of the womb knowing we were gay or knowing we were attracted to men. Like that was something we had to come out to ourselves about. So it might have been a cloudy process.
Well, and something one of our yobbers brought up on the Discord channel discussing this was that a lot of those 90s Disney cartoon villains were queer coded, and so I would probably say like that was probably my first exposure to gay representation in media, but it wasn't really. I didn't know it was gay representation, and so that's even a complicated question. Like, does that count? I don't know.
I wanted to mention queer coding real quick because I was like, yeah, that totally. I don't know. Was this like a huge revelation to you when you guys even realized that? Like I saw a YouTube video at some point where they were talking about that, where they would show like the examples that come to mind are Jafar from Aladdin or Scar from The Lion King. These like really isolated, single, kind of effeminate, dressed or acting people. Like all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, like I get all kinds of gay vibes now from these Disney villains.
It might be good to like define queer coding real quick for anyone who's not familiar with that idea. But basically it's kind of what Tom just said, that you can give a character all these like flags, all these signals that they're queer, and often like only I think one of the goals is so that you could so that only queer people sort of pick up on it, and it's supposed to sort of fly under the radar with straight or majority culture people.
Yeah.
And so Tom mentioned Jafar and Scar, and it happened with the female characters too, the female villains. Like I think Ursula from the
I was thinking
Mermaid.
that too.
One yobber mentioned Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, which I haven't seen that movie in a long, long time. But it happened with a lot of the villains at the time.
Yeah, my childhood is being deconstructed right now because this is a new thought for me. Yeah, I've never thought about this. It totally makes sense now that you mention it. But I was just innocent little Aaron, not picking up on all the queer stuff.
Whether you hear about the Fox and the Hound.
Hold up.
just kidding. That is a beautiful Jonathan and David story if ever I've seen one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's queer coding 101 for you. Yeah, I saw a really fascinating YouTube video and it blew my mind. It's just like we're blowing Aaron's mind now.
Yeah.
So that's happening in real time. I remember going back, I was joking about Ellen, but like, honestly, I think the first person on TV that I ever had some sort of awareness was gay was Rosie O'Donnell. Like I used to watch her talk show all the time. Loved her. She was also a huge Survivor fan, which I'm going to talk about Survivor later in this show. And so she would always be interacting with the contestants, and she hosted a reunion show one of the seasons, and I just loved Rosie O'Donnell. And then my world honestly deflated when I found out she was a lesbian. Like that really, when I was just, again, transplant back to whatever, 8-year-old, 10-year-old Tom, like I was just very deflated by that. Like, oh no, she's one of them. And this was like this very internally confused, if not homophobic, but certainly very confused, had no idea how to put language to what was happening inside of me. But I just remember that somewhat vividly of like, just feeling that deflate, like this changes everything. Now I don't like her. And that sounds so awful, but that's just how I perceived her as being a TV talk show host who was also gay.
Yeah, probably for me, it was Dumbledore in Harry Potter. Where he was never explicitly gay in the books, but then But then at some point, J.K. Rowling declared in a talk show one day that he was gay. And we can talk more about that, but that was probably, again, me sort of unknowing at the time, receiving some representation of a gay person.
Back when the LGBT plus community loved J.K. Rowling. It's waned over the years.
It's been a journey. This is a while.
Remember that? Remember those days? Yeah. I wanted to read some Yobber feedback to this first question, and then I want to hear what you guys have to say. We asked our Yobbers some, 3 or 4 questions, and they responded. They came through, and I'm so excited to share a lot of what they suggested, some characters and shows and movies that they have connected with over the years. Some of them I may or may not be familiar with. I feel like most of them I'm not. Maybe Ryan or Aaron will know some of them. Hopefully, as I read off some of these things, people listening will be able to connect with some of these things. But basically, we're asking the community, like, who are some gay characters that have appeared on screen or appeared in the pages that you've connected with, that you felt satisfied, that you felt represented by, or then are there others that you haven't? And then there's been some sort of a dissatisfaction with. And then we'll get into the topic of side B, like an explicitly traditional yet also gay representation. Like, what does that look like? Does that exist? We'll get to that as well. But the first question we asked was, how do you feel when you see gay male characters portrayed in media? Do you feel represented by them or not so much? And some really great responses. Someone said this: as an asexual gay man, there's basically no representation except maybe that one guy in BoJack Horseman. Have you guys seen that show?
I have, and I know who he's talking about.
Okay.
Is the character's name Jesse? I can't remember if that's the character's name or the actor's name, but he just wears a beanie all the time, and I don't know. I haven't watched enough of the show to know how we know he's asexual.
I have a hard time with cartoons in general, and so when I've seen that on Netflix, there's like a horseman. I was just like, I don't know. It looks too weird for me.
It's a little bizarre. Yeah.
It's a cartoon about depression. I didn't make it very far.
We have enough of that in the real world. But no, but I know it's a popular show. They've had so many seasons. I've heard about it for years. So there's that. Any BoJack Horseman fans out there you go. So that's on the asexual side of the spectrum, which is somewhere I kind of ruminate with as well. Someone else who's bi said this: since I'm bi, whenever I see gay male characters in media, I tend to feel more represented by them than I do by straight characters, but not entirely. So that's really interesting, because we have a smattering of bisexuals in our community who identify that way.
Both of those people make this interesting point that, like, I guess when I thought of this topic and when we brought this topic to the community, we were kind of mostly thinking in terms of like ourselves, right? But our community is bigger than that, and I think there are certainly parts of our community that whatever we feel, however much we feel unrepresented, I think that for some people it's gonna be even harder to feel represented.
Yeah, we had a few guys comment on cliches and stereotypes. One person said, I feel somehow represented, but sometimes I think the characters are built up as cliches. Someone else said, I rarely feel represented in media. A majority of queer media representation seems to play heavily on stereotypes that don't fit me at all. Maybe it's my choice to be celibate. Maybe it's my lack of understanding of the strong desire people seem to feel about needing to have sex in order to be fully human, but I rarely connect with queer characters in media. And then this one came up, which definitely will bring up a show that a lot of people seem to love that I have never gotten into. He said this: I love seeing gay male characters in movies when they're not reduced to stereotypical tropes, but real, relatable characters whose sexuality is only one of many aspects to them. LGBT representation is at its best when created, written, produced by LGBT people and not some straight dudes trying to attract more viewers. Shows like Schitt's Creek, can I say that? Shows like...
You pronounce the C, right? Yeah, I heard the C in there. And the extra T.
Shows like S-Creek, Please Like Me, and Special are great examples of LGBT shows created by LGBT people who put a lot of their personal lives into the story. I don't know if you guys, okay, so S Creek, is that something that you guys have watched? I've tried to watch it and I can't. I haven't pushed through enough, but I hear that it's a very popular show in our community.
I've watched some. I liked what I saw, but that's not enough for me usually to watch the rest of the show.
Okay.
Yeah, I have watched it. I've watched it all a couple times. I really like it. So I can represent that part of our community.
Oh, nice. Okay. Aaron coming through.
Do you feel represented by Schitt's Creek?
I do, yeah. So one of the characters, David, I think he's pansexual. So it's interesting how he kind of describes it. I don't remember exactly what he says, but he sort of describes it like a bottle of wine. Like it's more about the quality of the taste rather than the specific label that he's attracted to. So yeah, but they do a good job of making it more of a complicated, real relationship. And he has some encounters with women and some encounters with men, and it's good. I like it.
Yeah, somebody else. I'm going to skip ahead because I was asking the community as well. Like, who are some characters you've felt represented by? And someone mentioned this David person from. I'm just going to keep saying Schitt's Creek. Okay, I need to just be okay. I'm not actually swearing.
It's okay.
Listeners. It's spelled Schitt. So I'm not saying that.
It's just
word.
a family's name in the show. That's all.
Right. So from that show, there's a character named David, where, like Aaron said, he identifies as pansexual, and I identify, the person who submitted this comment, I identify as bi. I relate more to the portrayal of his experience than with gay representation. I especially love that he challenges people's perceptions. Most people, upon first meeting David, would quickly assume he's gay because he's flamboyant. But in the first couple seasons, his first and only romantic sexual interaction was with a woman. I feel like living as a bisexual man is a steady flow of challenging people's assumptions about sexuality and gender expression. So that's really interesting, really fascinating. That's a great specific example that I know our community will connect with by and large. Yeah, there was a comment that someone mentioned about LGBT characters and these movies that are produced and written by LGBT people so that it just feels more authentic and that it kind of flows from more of a personal experience to go beyond just who somebody's attracted to or the romantic or sexual tension of these characters. It reminded me of somebody I've really admired who is kind of like a comedic hero for me, is this guy, Billy Eichner, who has a show, Billy on the Street, where basically he runs around Manhattan and just screams at people with a microphone. And he has celebrities that he's with. So he's really fun. I think he's funny. He voiced Timon in the live action Lion King that came out a couple years ago. So that's another thing. But he's doing something really unique that I don't think has ever been done before, because I follow him on social media. He's a joy to follow. But he's producing a movie called Bros that comes out this year, I think, or next year or something. But it's like, I think it's like the first ever like all LGBT cast. Like everyone, pretty much anyone associated with the movie is LGBT plus. Even straight characters, like characters that are playing straight men and women, are going to be played by LGBT plus people. And I'm just really intrigued to see, the layers of humanity that come out with just that kind of an authentic experience. So I wish it were out now so I could comment more on it, but I just know that's a thing that's coming because someone mentioned that. And because that's just an interesting dynamic whenever you have LGBT people actually talking about their characters versus straight people writing these stereotypes. I think a lot of those can come across as stereotypical or fluffy or one-dimensional or what have you. So I'm excited for that movie. I hope it is good. I hope it has layers to it.
Yeah, and that brings up another interesting question that we may or may not have time to take up during this podcast, which is like, how important is it and why is it important for like gay people to play gay people versus like having a gay character played by a straight person? I think different people can feel very strongly about that, and it's a really interesting question to unpack.
Yeah, well, and I even wonder, like, what about the writer being gay? Because in some ways that feels more important to me than the actor, but I'm sure that could be debated as well. But yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I tend to think that's interesting. I'm curious where you guys stand on that. We can just talk about it right now. Like, as a writer myself, I agree with Aaron. Like, I'm not as concerned if the actor is gay or not. Because I feel like in acting, they're all portraying somebody else. So that doesn't bother me. I understand that it would bother other people or be a concern to other people, but I just want the story to make sense. I want it to be well-rounded. I want the characters to have more to them than a lot of just superficial things that we might see. Maybe not as much presently, but certainly years, decades ago for gay characters in media. So the writing to me is definitely more important if it's coming from a person who knows what they're talking about versus the actor that's portraying it. But what do you guys think?
I mean, I think on one layer, maybe there's a concern about non-straight actors maybe having a disadvantage, a systemic disadvantage in Hollywood, and so it's frustrating to see frustrating to see queer roles going to straight actors. But so I can understand that. You know, I'm not involved in the Hollywood movie industry, so it's hard for me to get super passionate about that. But I think maybe sometimes like a queer actor could connect with the role a little more than a straight actor could, and maybe those times it's good. It's nice to have a queer actor in a queer role. But that's all that's the farthest I've gotten thinking through this.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that is. I think that makes a lot of sense. I kind of wonder what makes more impact on the final product. Like, does the original material that is poorly interpreted by a straight person end up worse off than somebody who's straight writing a not very good gay role, but then that gay character or that gay person filling that gay character can maybe give it the life and the realness that it needs to work? Probably it's best if they're both gay. Let's just go with that. Make them all gay.
Everybody's gay. Yeah. Moving on to satisfying representations. We were curious about whether the community had any satisfying representations. We've already mentioned David from that show that shall not be named. So I'm going to start off with some things that I am familiar with, and then a lot of these I'm not familiar with. So Aaron and Ryan, you can jump in if you can vouch for it or you know what it is. But our beloved show Queer Eye, which has been mentioned on numerous podcasts and at least one blog, maybe multiple blogs as well. Shout out to Will Cooper, who loves said show. One of our community members said this: honestly, one of the few times I've experienced good representation has been through the show Queer Eye. I really appreciated the desire and focus on improving people's lives holistically and addressing hard conversations while also using their unique gifts that don't always fit queer stereotypes. And yeah, I will stand up for Queer Eye till the cows come home, if that's what the saying is, because the fact that show hits on so many things, like the fact, I don't necessarily think that building a house from scratch is necessarily a gay or a queer thing, but one of the guys, Bobby, he does it. He often will build something out of nothing, and that is just an incredibly I don't know, I'm just always inspired by the spaces that he creates. And I'm particularly inspired by the quote unquote culture expert on the show, Karamo, because there's the conversations he has with people. He's a social worker in real life, and he knows his stuff, and he just he knows how to dig down to what is the insecurity, or what is the big hang up in the person's life that they're helping. And I'm just always moved by, he always comes up with these really unique scenarios and exercises that he does with them, and has just these really heart-to-heart conversations. And that just really speaks to me as someone who enjoys that sort of thing. So he stands out to me as someone that I kind of see a little bit of myself in, just from I used to work with troubled youth and did some mentoring back in the day. And so I just really appreciate this therapeutic approach and just being able to get to the root of these issues, because there's more to just someone's just sloppy and their house is a mess. There's something going on there. What is the issue? What is happening? And so it's not just a surface level fix. He tries to go deeper, which I always enjoy. Another one that one of our yobbers suggested, which I definitely agree with, is the movie Love, Simon, which was adapted from a book, Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda. So I need to give love to the book because the book came first. But he said this: the anxiety that Simon felt in holding onto the secret that he's gay, spoiler alert, And the combination of dread and release he felt the first time he tells someone was so palpable. And I felt all of it because I know that feeling of coming out to someone all too well. There's that aspect of it. And then for me as well, it really had an eerie parallel to my life because so much of that movie, for those that have seen it, is he kind of starts to process sexuality and starts to experiment or just starts to figure out how to put words to it by having this internet connection with somebody through email and through like Tumblr or something, some website out there. And it was very reminiscent of like when I started on Zanga and I started finding these blogs and started connecting digitally with other people as well. So there was this element of just like learning to process this online first. Like that's how I started processing my sexuality, was online with randos. So shout out to the randos who helped me process my sexuality. Cause yeah, that's definitely a character I saw a lot of myself in, especially in the early going, not so much in the latter part of the film, but in the early stages when he's starting to process all this and connect, like I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, I really resonated with Love, Simon Spear. I mean, I think similar to you, a lot of my processing started via email. And so that exchange felt very nostalgic. But also, I just thought they did such a good job of highlighting all the big level, big picture complexities of like, first off, figuring out you're gay, and then coming out and kind of showing one example of how the perfect response from a parent would be and a not so perfect response from a parent would be. And he's also sort of just a kid trying to get through life doing his thing. Like this is going on, but there's other stuff going on too. And yeah, similar to you, like I don't know that I resonate with the happily ever after ending. Like they always cut the movie off right there, right? When they just start dating and it's just perfect and in the honeymoon stage still. Right. But yeah, it was a very good representation, I think, of a lot of what I felt.
So there was a movie a few years back called Fourth Man Out, and it was sort of a indie low budget film. It was mostly, I think they're aiming for mostly comedy with some dramatic aspects, but the premise is there's this mechanic living in like a blue collar town, USA, and he has his little group of like 3 buds, and the story is him coming out to them and how his coming out to them impacts their friendship, their friend group, and how they see him and how they respond to him, and them as like a group of friends working through that. And I remember I think the most interesting part of the movie to me is at the beginning, right after he comes out to his best friend looks over to him and says, "Look, this doesn't change anything." And then the rest of the movie keeps asking the question, is that really possible? Is that really a promise they can keep? And so the relationship between this guy and his best friend, I think it really resonated with me because the main character is sort of working through like, what is my love for this man? Like, what does it mean? What kind of love do I have for this guy? And it's sort of ambiguous at times, and he doesn't really, it's hard for him to find answers, and his love doesn't really fit in a box. And I feel very, very represented by that. I feel very much less alone in the world when I see that like somebody, some director or writer out there decided to make this movie, and I feel less crazy because that's not something you really see in the stories people tell. Similarly, I thought Luca actually had some similar themes where the love between the 2 boys isn't really well categorized, and I think you saw a lot of people reading into it kind of what they wanted, but and maybe I'm just doing the same thing here, but I mean, in my opinion, like the love between the 2 characters isn't really easy to categorize, and that's really important to me. That sometimes our love is complicated, sometimes it is ambiguous, sometimes it doesn't fit into into categories. And so, yeah, even though Luca didn't really explicitly say any of the characters were straight or not, I felt like that was good representation of the kinds of relationships or kinds of love that I felt.
Yeah. Shout out to Eugene, one of our bloggers, because he wrote a blog about Luca. And I think, fingers crossed, I think I'm going to get Eugene on an upcoming ConvoCast to dive into Luca. It'll be like Yob's film review. We're going to dive into Luca for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so stay tuned. I'm putting it out there now, so this will now force me to follow through and make this episode happen. Although I also need 2 to tango, so Eugene just needs to agree. He already has. We just got to figure out a time to coordinate that. But yeah, no, Luca, definitely a community favorite as well. Let me rattle off some of these other ones because so many great suggestions from Yobbers. Loved all the feedback. One person said this: one of my favorite pieces of LGBT representation comes from Pose, and it's because I get to see other aspects of LGBT life. The experience of living through the AIDS era as Black trans women, which I am not, almost akin to seeing your family on TV or something. You guys heard of Pose? You know what that is?
I have heard of it. I've heard very good things about it, but I have not seen it.
Nice. I haven't owned a TV since my freshman year of college, so it's been a while. I don't know what the kids are watching.
Make it tough.
If it's not on Netflix or other streaming services, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. I'm kind of hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up with things. But someone else said the show Everwood. I remember that from like CW days. I think it's like CW, kind of in that vein of shows. The show Everwood about characters Kyle and Ephraim. I think Kyle represented me when I was a teenager in some way. Somehow I resounded with his anger or frustrations. What I find more satisfying about it was that he was able to develop a genuine friendship with Ephraim instead of turning him into a crush or a love interest. He was able and willing to build a friendship with without any other thing into the mix. We've already talked about the show. Someone else said the film, I don't even know how to say this. I'm so unprepared. Someone said the film, The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Do you guys know what that is?
I have watched that movie, actually.
Is that the name of the movie? That whole thing? That long phrase?
Yeah.
Wow.
It is. And you did, I think you said it correctly.
Guernsey, okay, I'm going to try it again. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Let's finish his thought. Showed a gay man called Sydney, the editor and friend of the main character, Elizabeth. While their relationship was not a major plot point, I think it provided an interesting perspective on the gay experience, especially our relationship with our female friends. It was not played in an excessive gay best friend kind of way, but placed him in a position of honor, making him a sort of older brother figure. So that was really interesting to me. You've seen it, Aaron?
Yeah, I have. It's been a while, so I don't remember super well. But it's very interesting. And the setting it's part flashback to this little society meeting. I believe it was during World War II in Nazi-controlled somewhere. And it's one of the characters afterwards sort of going back and reminiscing. But it's a really interesting story about friendship. And they bring in some nice LGBT representation, I would say. Okay. And do it in a way that is not cliche and stereotypical. So it's nice that way.
So I had to say, I'm just stuck on this phrase, potato peel pie. Like
they make like a pie of potato peels. Keep in mind, this is World War II when that's as good as it gets, I guess. Yeah, I said, I don't remember totally.
The army takes all the potatoes and all you're left with is peels.
Right.
It's funny because as I was reading that, I mean, it's been on my little document that I'm reading off, so I've seen it previously to this moment. But even as I was reading it live, I was like, I think that's 2 different. It's so long. It's got to be 2 different movies that he's suggesting. But no, that is all one movie. You guys all check it out. Let us know what you think. And I can't leave this part of the conversation without mentioning Boy Erased, because we had we've had people in our community go through conversion therapy and have had some traumatic experiences with that. But the reason I wanted to bring up Boy Erased, because there's a really touching moment in the film that I felt seen, and I just thought was beautifully well done. It's a beautifully done movie. There's a scene in the movie where the main character, Jared, encounters another boy another man. I don't know. I guess they're teenagers. He's a boy. So he encounters another boy, and you would think like, oh, this is Hollywood. They're like all alone in a room and dim lighting. Like they're gonna start making out, or they're gonna start having sex, or there's something sexual in the air that's about to happen. But all they do is they just lie on the bed because he's just in torment and he's just so confused and doesn't know what to do with his life. And they just lie on the bed and they just like nothing happens, and they just look at each other and they just talk and they just sit in silence. The other guy isn't trying to like force himself on the other guy. And I just thought that was such a beautiful, tender moment where it's like, just because two gay people are alone in a room doesn't mean they're going to start doing things. Like they just enjoyed each other's company. And it was a really sweet moment that I just really was totally not prepared for. That totally caught me off guard. And I really appreciated that because yeah, that's just something that speaks to me as someone who doesn't have, that experience. It was beautiful to watch play out. Our next question is moving from the satisfying to the unsatisfying. Should we have started with unsatisfying? I don't know. Here we are though. Are there characters that have popped up over the years, you guys, that have, I don't know, left an incomplete feeling in your proverbial mouth or stomach or what have you?
Yeah, I hesitate to really, originally I was going to put Dumbledore in the satisfying category, but I'm actually going to put him in the unsatisfying category just because I wish there had been more there. Like I wish that J.K. Rowling had talked about him, had treated him as a gay character, like explicitly in the books, if she was going to later then like announce that he was gay. Because I thought that he was a really very, very side B adjacent, honestly. Like he is, for all that anyone can tell, like vastly celibate, apart from like this one romantic fling early in his life. And he's devoted his life to things bigger than himself. I remember when the news first broke that Dumbledore was gay, I was mad about it. And I think that was coming out of sort of an internalized homophobia time for me, because that was probably in the mid 2000s, I guess. And it felt like, she just had to make him gay. I'm trying to remember exactly what I was mad about, but it's really hard, guys. And I'm trying to remember when sort of like that switch flipped from like he's too much gay representation to he's not enough gay representation.
Yeah, that's an interesting journey for you to go between those two sides of it.
Yeah, and I think maybe it was when I started to identify as gay. I started to see, oh wait, here's this character who could have represented very well like what I envisioned for my life. Who doesn't want to be like Dumbledore, right? Like Dumbledore is a great character. So yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe when I kind of shifted my own identity language to be a little closer to how people talk about Dumbledore.
Did you guys both read Harry Potter? I never did. I never got into that. I feel left out.
I did, but not till I was older. So I didn't read it until a few years ago. And you missed out if you didn't read it. It's good stuff.
I love hearing that I missed out. That's great. It's great stuff to hear. Yeah. How do we feel about Gandalf? Do we get gay vibes from Gandalf?
I get ace vibes.
Ace vibes. Yeah, I see
the
that.
The thing is, like with Gandalf, even though he looks like a human, he's not human per se. Like he's not man or categorized in the category of men, like in Lord of the Rings. Like he's a wizard, so he's sort of this other entity. So I never really thought about his sexuality because I sort of thought of him as just removed from the plane of sexuality altogether.
Interesting.
I will add another. I'll go back to Fourth Man Out to finish my answer to this question. And sorry to spoil this for anyone, but the movie ends with this guy, the main character, finally finding a man, like sort of finally landing a date. And it really felt like it took away from the movie. And I don't think I'm saying that just because I'm celibate. I think that like the movie was about friendship. And so it was unsatisfying to me when his life couldn't be complete without picking up a guy.
I know. Isn't that the worst? One of our yobbers said that. He said representation is disappointing to me most often when a romance is pigeonholed into the story. Whether you use the language of pigeonholed or it just has to end that way. It has to end with finding a partner. Like, does it always? That can be very unsatisfying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also have a strong love for Fourth Man Out. It was during my phase where I went and just binged all the LGBTQ plus genre movies on Netflix and then Hulu and wherever I could find it. That one stood out as much better than most, for sure. And part of the reason is, it focuses so much on friendship. And I agree, it just didn't really make plot sense even. So I think what's frustrating most to me about most of these sorts of movies is at the end, there always seems to be sort of this agenda of making them get into this gay romance, and now it ends with them living happily ever after. And we get a lot of that from straight people, from just like typical heterosexual romance movies. But it feels like there isn't yet a well-developed part of Hollywood that shows, okay, this is a gay person being a human and having a really tough time with their love life, or just sort of, there's not enough complexity there. It's been hyper-focused on, they came out, they finally accepted themselves, and when they accepted themselves, they found the love and man of their dreams or woman of their dreams, and like they get to just be done now. But I want the sequel. Like, show me where they're at 5 years later. Do they even talk anymore? Or are they like married, but they're just that bitter married couple who hates each other? I don't know. Like, they certainly don't need to make every movie that way, but having some more humanity to some of the gay characters, I think, would be better for everybody.
Yeah. You guys got me all intrigued now. Like, I'm missing out on Harry Potter. I'm missing out on this Fourth Man Out, the pie peeling thing. I have so much to catch up on. I'm gonna have to create a queue after this episode.
Yeah.
People who know Thomas Mark Zuniga know that Survivor has been my favorite show ever since it hit the airwaves. And there's something about this is really interesting to me because I don't know how much you guys know this. Survivor has an incredibly strong LGBT following. Gay people love this show. It has a very disproportionate number of people on, whether it's because it's like hot people in their bathing suits and underwear. I don't know if that's like on one end of the spectrum and on the other end of the spectrum. Do we like the idea of being removed from normal society and like having a bit of a refuge or something? Like, I don't know what's going on with why so many gay people love this show.
It's all the working so hard to avoid getting cast out.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. We can relate so much with just trying to survive. That's it. That's your day to day.
We're survivors.
Yeah. I think there's a survival element to it that I think is more than just physical survival. Yeah. For whatever reason, 12-year-old Tom loved this show when it hit the airwaves, and I've never missed a season, watch it all the time. I'm sure there's probably a decent number of our listeners who love Survivor. In the back of my mind growing up, and certainly when I started coming to terms with my sexuality, I always wondered, like, would there ever be someone who's a self-identified gay Christian? Would there ever be a gay Christian on the show? I wouldn't have used the language of gay Christian at the time. I would have used an SSA Christian, or I would have used someone who has a traditional belief and whatever they label themselves as. I always wondered if that would ever be a person. And then I would wonder, like, what if that's my job? What if I'm supposed to apply for this show and be the first person that would represent that person? Because they've had some really interesting gay characters. It's weird to call them characters, but it's like you're only seeing this edited version of them, so I call them characters. But they've had a whole slew of gay people appear on this show over the years. It's been on since 2000, so 20 plus years now. But in season 29, Survivor San Juan Del Sur, they finally cast, it was a family season, so like there were people who knew each other that were on the show together. They cast these boyfriends, Josh and Reed, who were New York City, like Broadway theater boys, and they identified as gay Christians. And that threw me for such a loop because up until that time, like, I had hoped that if there was going to be a gay Christian on the show or an SSA Christian, that it would be someone like me, someone with my particular belief on sexuality. And all of a sudden, these two boys, not just one, but two of them on the same season, are stealing my thunder and are kind of making myself sort of feel represented. They didn't talk like at length about their faith on the show, a little bit here and there. But it also was just like, but this isn't completely correct. Like I felt satisfied to see some version of myself on the screen finally, but the fact that they were dating with, together, and it's just like, it just fell completely flat for me at the end. And one of them turned into a villain. And I just was like, I'm so done with this show. I need to see myself represented, because over 40 seasons now, I still have not yet to see someone on the show who has a traditional belief on sexuality who would identify as gay. Like I haven't seen that person go on the show yet. And I've had multiple people tell me that I need to apply or I need to go on, and maybe one day that will happen. But that is something that has stuck with me ever since I started watching this show.
You just keep up those workouts for the next 2 months and you're in.
I need to look hot in my bathing suit to be cast, sadly. But
you should make your autoimmune disease like your thing for getting on the show. But then like sort of Trojan horsed in there is gay celibate Christian.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Because I kind of wonder if like the producers would be receptive to that. Like on the one hand, it's something they've never had before, which is a plus. But on the other hand, is that too controversial? Is that don't want to get their hands on that type of a person broadcasting to millions of people? Like, I don't know. I'm curious.
I think they'd love your autoimmune disease and they would not like your faith sexuality so much.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But I guess to close out the conversation today, you guys, is there such a thing as a fully satisfying representation? Could that ever exist? Like a person, like I was just saying, a person who has a traditional belief on sexuality, and whether they identify as gay or queer or SSA or what have you, like, is that something that could happen in some sort of a fictional world, or even I guess a non-fictional, if it was like a documentary even or something? But I don't know. What do you feel? What do you think about that possibility one day, if it doesn't already exist, if you can't think of any?
I mean, I think I'm optimistic. I think that, you use the phrase fully satisfying, and I think, it's hard to imagine what that would mean, but
mostly, predominantly. Yeah.
I remember, Eve Tushnet's novel Amends, which I highly recommend. It is
second
hysterical.
Eve Tushnet reference of the day.
Yeah, we're dropping Eve's name left and right here. It is fantastic. It is not really about sexuality. One of the side characters is a gay celibate Christian, and I feel like that representation was spot on. And I loved that character and his the kind of minor plot arc he had. And I think the representation we see is going to come from within our community. Like I think at least for now, it's going to come from inside of our community. And so I would love to be somehow part of creating, like telling more stories involving people like us, for sure.
Yeah, I think for it to be fully satisfying to me, it almost has to be somewhat mainstream. Like even if it comes from within our community, that's fine. But to me, it's a little bit about feeling like I'm being seen, and that others are seeing me. And if it's just a bunch of other, gay celibate Christians reading it and feeling seen, like I think that's good, but I don't know if that's fully satisfying the way as like seeing a Love Simon for a side B Christian would be, where he goes through all of that and then makes a tough decision to be celibate or marry a woman or something. But I don't know. I'm not particularly optimistic that it will ever happen, and partly I think that's because it's really hard for Hollywood to get Christians right.
Yeah. So
I don't know how if you can't get Christians right, then how are you going to get a gay Christian right?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And but could it be done? Yes, it could be done. Do I expect to live to see it someday? No, but I hope the world proves me wrong.
Yeah. Someone posted it. I thought it was so humorous. Someone just posted, "We need a side B movie, but it would probably be very boring." And I was like, okay, interesting. We would have to figure out, how can we spice it up? How can we make this a story worth investing in? I think there's ways.
Oh, yeah.
It has challenges, though. It certainly has challenges.
Yeah.
I have to, this is not self-promotion, but I have to do it because the person wrote it in such a hilarious way. But he said, I think having good side B representation still goes back to the idea of honestly telling a side B person's story. Ever hear of a little book called Struggle Central? I think the side B movement is still young, and I'm not expecting side B characters to show up in mainstream TV, movies, fiction, and books, but there's definitely something to be said for the side B'ers who have documented and published their experiences, because it really is a start in voicing our way of living out our sexuality. Even for a Christian, side B movie show be made would be a huge milestone. But I think how that happens is with people like us. Like, how cool would it be for a yobber that's into filmmaking to make a show, movie, a short film revolving around a side B character? This is where we turn it over to the audience and say, y'all, do it. Make it. Make it happen. We encourage you. We support you. I think that'd be so cool. Like, I don't have any film background. That is one thing. If I could go back and do college over again, I would do something with film. Like, I would get my feet wet with just taking some background courses. Like, I don't know, just getting some sort of understanding of the film world and screenwriting or whatever, and just trying to add that feather in my cap, because I have no knowledge of that world. I have no connection to it. And I feel like that would be such a huge gift to the world. It would be a challenge. It would be ridiculed. It would be, but all good art is. There's no art that's just universally beloved, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it was pointed out to me earlier this week that Justin Lee, who is famous for founding the Gay Christian Network, he created a musical about being a gay Christian,
Really?
and it wasn't really like, the person who told me about this he said it wasn't really like strongly side A or side B, but I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there is something out there.
I have never heard of that. Yeah, because I've read Justin Lee, and so I'm surprised I haven't heard of that. Interesting.
Yeah, I do wonder if the church could figure out the side B issue and get behind it. I think maybe I am a little more optimistic then, because I don't remember the production company or the film group, but they've done Facing the Giants and Courageous and Fireproof. Like, they've done some pretty good Christian films, and they've only gotten better as they've, done them more recently. But it'd be interesting to see if at some point the church would be open to supporting a story like ours being put onto the big screen.
Or something that comes to mind is The Chosen. There's a lot of people who are all about The Chosen, myself included. And it's just like, it's the largest crowdfunded TV production in history. Like, it's incredible what they're doing. And they've made 2 seasons now. And that's just incredible. Like again, there's outside the box thinking. There's ways to do this that doesn't have to follow the traditional model. It'd be cool if it did follow the traditional model, if Hollywood got on board, but to crowdsource it and just create it out of that passion, I think is an interesting wild card option. That The Chosen, a little more universal when you tell the story of Jesus and his followers. That's, I think, has broader appeal than maybe the story we would want to tell. But
I felt very represented by fussy wedding caterer Thomas in the show.
Oh, have you seen it? I didn't know if you saw it. Fussy Tom, no longer doubting Thomas, but fussy Thomas.
Fussy. He was this wedding caterer in the show. He was a wedding caterer, and he was just very detail oriented, and everything has to be right. And if that's actually some pretty good gay representation, if you ask me.
Wow. I'm excited for that show when we get to the part where John lays his head on Jesus's breast. That is going to be the apex of gay representation.
That's the only reason I'm watching it.
It's going to take 5 seasons to get there, but we're going to get there.
Just
done a really good
see job. What and how they handle that.
because
what
they
they
have,
don't normally do.
they've done a good job of like being accurate, but then also giving the characters a lot of roundedness and dimension and depth. So I'm really curious to see when Last Supper rolls around, what happens.
Right. Perhaps a no homo or two will be muttered.
I can't wait.
Let's
I
hope
can't
not.
wait for the evangelical response to that, even though it's right in scripture. Like, this is what happened.
Right.
So I'm curious. Yeah.
I feel like I've generally seen gay representation or just LGBTQ plus in general representation get better in the last 20 years. And it feels like there's more diversity, to how they represent it. So maybe I think there's more hope to see, even if it's not a gay Christian, to at least see gay people who are humanized in a way that the classic cliche love story or the classic cliche like gay character that's just the butt of all the jokes hasn't done before. So yeah, I'm optimistic for a lot of gay representation in media, but we just have to remember that the world doesn't really get Christianity in a lot of ways, and it certainly doesn't get celibate Christians, and it certainly doesn't get gay celibate Christians. So it's going to be hard for them to portray something they don't know anything about, nor could they comprehend from their current worldview.
What about asexual gay celibate Christians? Let's just make it more
specific.
It
just the minorities of the minority. It just goes on.
In a mixed orientation marriage, no less.
Right. Racial minorities who are LGBTQ. Yeah.
But like I said, maybe someone out there, someone listening has a film background. You feel the stirring to tell a story. You want to turn Struggle Central into a movie. Let me know. Get in touch. I've thought about that. I've had random thoughts over the years, like what would my life as a movie look like? Not even just my book representation, but do you guys ever think about that? Like what your life as a movie could look like? Or is that just me as a writer? I think about that a lot.
No.
Can't say I think that much about that. No. I would be utterly like horrified if somebody tried to make a movie of my life.
Oh, it would be
Right.
absolutely horrifying, but I think about it nonetheless. It's a fun thought experiment, yeah, for me.
Fun,
But,
huh?
Fun is the word that we're going with. You guys, this is such a great conversation. Listeners, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We got so much feedback from our Yobbers community, and so if you didn't submit something in time, or if you're not part of our Yobbers community, you want to share some of your thoughts on representation in media, go over to our podcast episode page. Go to yotherbrothers.com/podcast, find episode 91, and tell us a tale about your experience with books, with movies, with TV shows. Those are the main ones. I guess you could talk about other things too, but comic books, maybe.
That's another big one.
Yeah, that is actually a big one. I was joking, but
Mhm.
I have no knowledge of the comic book world, but I know that's a big thing for people. So nerd alert, but you're welcome here. You're welcome here as well. Yeah, tell us how you feel. If you feel represented, satisfied, unsatisfied, or how do you feel? What are your optimism or lack of optimism about a side B representation? That's effective, that's deep, that's beautiful, that's tragic, all of the things. Checks all the boxes. Let us know. And thank you, Ellen.
Thanks, Ellen. I love Ellen.
I got an envelope in the mail. It said, "This is from Ellen, and I will sponsor the next episode." And I said, "Okay, you got it. Thank you, Ellen."
Starbucks gift card for $5.
Hey, man, I will
Look at
take
the
it.
job done.
Okay, here's an idea. If somebody listening wants to send me a Starbucks gift card for $5, you can be the sponsor of the next show. That is a fact.
Ooh, we are.
P.O. Box.
It's going to happen,
P.O.
Tom.
Box
You know that.
843, Asheville, North Carolina 28802. Please. My brother will say it in the outro if you missed it. But yeah, that's funny. That is so funny. I would totally give you a sponsorship.
We're getting into some tax implications.
I have a good accountant. I'll talk to her about that. But Ryan and Aaron, it's so good to see you guys. Ryan, I'm so glad we got to do this episode with you.
Me too. Thank you.
Do you feel satisfied,
Excellent.
or do you feel?
I feel
underwhelmed?
satisfied. I'm just. This is all I wanted out of helping to host the podcast, and really, this is my last one. Thanks.
You can ride off into the sunset.
Oh, he's gone. Yep.
I'm glad we can erase the top of the spreadsheet now. It's going to have a blank space now after we complete this. So that's monumental. What a day. What an occasion. But it was great. I love this conversation. Hopefully we'll be able to have more content like these, because like people keep creating movies and books and TV shows. And so maybe there'll be more to talk about a year from now. Maybe we can do a sequel. That would be fun. That's all for today. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next time with another exciting episode. But for now, for all your other brothers, my name is Tom.
This is Ryan.
And I'm Aaron.
Reminding you that you are not alone. Even the sparrow finds a home. See you next time, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Your Other Brothers podcast. Our show is edited and produced by Thomas Mark Zuniga. If you enjoy our show, consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Your Other Bros. We'd love to hear your story. Comment on this or any of our episodes at yourotherbrothers.com/podcast, or share a story to play back on our show by calling us at 706-389-8009. You can also email us at podcast@yourotherbrothers.com. or write to us at Your Other Brothers, P.O. Box 843, Asheville, North Carolina 28802. Finally, if you'd like to further support our storytelling, community building efforts, consider becoming a Yobber. Yobbers pledge monthly on Patreon and receive perks like bonus podcast content, access to a secret Facebook group, regular group calls with fellow patrons and authors, and more. Visit patreon.com/yourotherbros for more information. Until we journey next time, we're glad you're with us.